As it is known, history is used to function as a tool for understanding our past, its relation to the present, and how it can predict the future. In terms of musical aestheticism, history has shown us that what society finds to be, quote, beautiful music has drastically changed from musical period to musical period. Whether it should elicit a certain type of emotion or even emotion at all is at the discretion of the musician and their audience. Perceiving music as either beautiful or not is truly the product of social response, which has historically changed. Therefore, by understanding popular music during certain musical time periods allows us to better understand how musical beauty has changed dramatically over time. Although sound, which some consider being an interchangeable term with music, has started long before recorded musical periods, which musical historians use to define eras of common music. Music has been recognized as an early art form early on in history, during biblical times, in ancient Greece, Egypt, and Rome, and during medieval times, as depicted in this photograph. Musical time periods, shown in this timeline, share the common characteristics of a common method of emitting music, such as instruments, musical notation, as well as popularity. Popularity comes through being pleasing to people, which is thus aesthetically pleasing, therefore being considered as beautiful. One of the most well known and earliest musical periods which came into prevalence would be the Baroque period. It lasted from approximately 1600 to 1760, with famous composers such as Antonio Vivaldi, George Frederick Handel, and the most famous being Johann Sebastian Bach. It was one of the first forms of musical composition which purposely juxtaposed both joy and sadness as its principal theme. It had a sharp emphasis on the contrast in tempo, volume, and timbre. When compared with its predecessors, Baroque music can be seen as highly ornate, lavishly texturized, and intense. This is what was deemed beautiful in that time period, as you can hear in the background. In many ways, the music shaped the culture in terms of fashion, dance, and even philosophy.
You say you want a revolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world.
A revolution did in fact occur in the history of music. Modern music, which encapsulates most of the 20th century, has had a dramatic change from what it was deemed as beautiful from that of the 1800s, which marked the end of the classical period of music. Between these eras, popular music began to stray away from these traditional ideals of music. Music, by this time, diversified. As opposed to its predecessors, there was no definite location which allowed music to proliferate. This was due to the advances in technology and communication. Europe was no longer the center for all beautiful music. Now, music came from all corners of the earth. Although instruments and voice were still used, the manner in which it is done is very unique. In fact, many no longer even use musical notation to compose their music, but rather play it by ear. Rather than being available to the social elite, music at this point was available to all. Although lumped into one era of its own, it was truly unique from decade to decade and from culture to culture. It has inspired music of today to continue this trend of multicultural talent, allowing for the perception of musical beauty to broaden. Thus, through historical investigation, it can be deduced that musical beauty is continually modified to fit the desires of society. As its trend shows, considering what music is beautiful has become broader and more universal, as opposed to focusing on traditional forms of both notation and performance.